Happy Friday, and welcome to another Mavens of Manufacturing episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Factory Fix, which is a manufacturing talent platform that combines the power of a talent network featuring over 400,000 skilled manufacturing pros and a recruiting platform built specifically for the manufacturing industry. Today, I am so excited to have Megan Preston Meyer. Hello, Megan. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you, Megan?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us on Mavens of Manufacturing today. I'm really excited because one of my passions is to really get younger kids involved in the trade skills and engineering and manufacturing. So when I found out that you were writing children's books surrounding supply chain, I was like, I need to invite her to Mavens and have you share your story. So to start off, can you just share a little information about yourself and how you even got involved with this great sector? Because I love it so much, and I think it's such a great place to be, especially for women, because it's got a lot of different areas we can get into. So how did you get involved with it?
So I spent 10 years in the corporate world, mainly in supply chain, and then moving more towards analytics.
Okay.
And throughout that whole time, I was, I was mainly, I started out very cut and dried, supply chain optimization, figuring out how to get all of the barley from a farm field to a dock, basically not losing any of it along the way. And then from there, I kind of moved more and more towards spreadsheets in the different industries. So it was mainly supply chain and analytics. And then one day I realized actually this is great and I'm good at it, but I'm much better at communication actually.
Okay.
And so I left the corporate world and jumped into being a writer. And that's what led me to supply chain and then what led me here.
So before I ask my next question too, we have a bunch of people already commenting. So I want to thank everyone who's joining us today, and feel free to drop your comments below. I'll try to pull them up. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask those either. I'm not the only person with questions, and I'd love to share others on there. But we have Gail on here. She said, I'm part of another group. So if not here, definitely catching the replay on YouTube. So for those of you who are brand new, I do have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to, and you'll get notifications when new episodes come up. We also have Malachi from Elite Automation. He's like, let's go. And then we have Gina Tabasso here and ready to listen to storytelling, an agency that I worked with, mentioned getting certified in story branding content, but the right kinds of content that engage and inspire. And then we also have Angela, who's on board. Hi, Angela. Thanks for joining us. And then Gail said she's loves storytelling to help catapult brains, ideas, recruiting, retention, sales. It is how we all connect through the power of story. #show-up. So that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about too. With data, it can be so boring and drawn out, and I think people start to tune out if they have too much data and information. And then we have the challenge of like organizing it and tracking the right data. And you have on your profile that you're telling the stories that data doesn't tell. So can you dive in a little bit deeper into what you mean by that statement?
Yeah, like you said, we live in a world where there is data everywhere. Every single job, I don't care what you're doing, you've got a dashboard. There's always you have to be data driven. You have to be making number based or decisions based on numbers, which you should be. I mean, you can't always just go purely with your gut, but we tend to rely too heavily on data. Sometimes we hide behind the numbers, and like you said, even in the best of worlds, numbers only tell half the story. And they're just, we don't, as humans, our brains aren't wired to look at spreadsheets. We're wired for stories. And numbers in any environment, they don't really mean anything until you put them in context. And so you have to tell the story around the data if you want to be persuasive, if you want to make the right recommendations, if you want to go in the right direction. And so that's really what I'm talking about is, data is great, but not on its own. You've got to tell the other half of the story too.
I think that's a great point because for someone like myself, I like math and I never got along. I never was good at math. So when I took math class, I actually did better when they did the story problems and attached the equations to the story problems. And I loved when we had to do equations that way because I could actually picture it better in my head. So I think that's a really good point that you bring up, that if you're just presenting the information in spreadsheets or like a report, it can kind of get lost. So you really have to connect the value of what it's providing other people to those numbers. So I really love all of that. We have more people coming on. LinkedIn user, it's not showing your name, but thank you for joining us. And then we have Daniel, sorry, not enough coffee, Dan. He says, hello, everyone. He has an epic beard, by the way. I love that guy's beard. And then we have Kathy. Good morning, Angela. And she's saying greetings to everyone. Thank you all for coming on. I really appreciate it. So then the main topic that I wanted to talk to you about too, because I just love connecting with other writers, and I think your website has a really good blog on it. You have kind of a you write with a sense of humor, and I liked reading all of your blogs because it made me want to keep reading. And you got involved with children's books, and you made this character Supply Jane. And I thought it was really cool that you used dinosaur eggs, because what kid doesn't like dinosaurs? So can you take us on that journey of how you came up with the idea of Supply Jane, and then what gave you the idea of, relating it to dinosaur eggs, and, how that process was? Was it stressful or fun? Because I can't imagine writing a book would be completely, without stress, but that seems like the fun kind of stress that you would want to take part in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say it was much more the fun side of stress. But to go back to the beginning, it actually, the book series started with the name. So it came up, I was hiking in the mountains with my husband, and we were exchanging supply chain funds, as you do when you're hiking. And we came up with the name Supply Jane. And we thought it was so funny, and thought, that's going to be a character. And then we came up with her dog, FIFO, which is, of course, like FIFO, first in, first out. And so once we had the characters, we sort of had to create the story that went around them. And this was, it went from one of those, this is funny, wouldn't it be, like we should, like I should write a kid's book about it. And then it just sort of snowballed. And I sat down on my computer. I came up with a little adventure. And then I thought, well, I'll just check to see if there's anyone who could illustrate it for me, because I don't draw myself. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of, from there, I found Anita Amersdorfer is the illustrator, and she is absolutely incredible. And I'm not sure, well, I am sure where the eggs came from, because the first book, which I have next to me, as every self-respecting author would, FIFO Saves the Day. It's about inventory rotation. And so I needed something fun. I didn't want to just be like, hey, like they went to the store and looked at the milk to see what the expiration dates were. So I wanted to add a little element of fun and fantasy to it. And so that's where they're actually dragon eggs, not just dinosaur eggs. And so that's where, I'm not offended, don't worry. But so that's where the idea came from, is to, get the dragons in there, get the, FIFO doesn't talk, but he's definitely, he's smarter than an average dog. Get a little bit of the, like the bedtime story elements or the imaginative elements in there. So it's not just like a dumbed down textbook that you read to your kids. I wanted it to be fun.
Well, and I think that's really important too, because nowadays we have so many things that are digital. So I'm seeing kids and I'm guilty of this as a parent too. Like my kids already know how to call and text from their iPads, and they're only 3 and 4. So judge me all you want on that part, but they do enjoy sitting down and reading books still. And I think that's still an important skill to, instill within your kids who are young, like teach them how to sit still and open up a book and appreciate the illustrations as well as the story that's going on there. And I'm curious to know, like, how long was that process for you? Like, what gravitated you to the artist? Because the illustrations are phenomenal, and I think that's a major part of it, right? Kids they're attracted to visual information first. So how did you know that was the right fit for you when selecting her?
It was, so I found her on Upwork, a freelancing
Okay.
platform, and I had originally thought, when I'm going to have to lay out every single page, like sketch it out and say I want a dragon egg over here and I want supply chain here and FIFO here. I thought I was going to have to specify every single detail. And so I started looking through portfolios of artists on this platform, and I didn't know how to hire. I didn't know how to hire an illustrator, so I was asking questions like, tell me, what do you know about supply chain? Do you have a background in it? And like kind of these behavioral interview questions to select an artist. And Aneta, when she responded, she was like, I don't know much about supply chain, but I do know about illustrating. So why don't I, instead of answering all these questions, why don't I just draw you a sketch of the characters and see if we match? See if what I'm thinking and what you think you're thinking are even anywhere close together. And so right off the bat, she impressed me with her, her professionalism. But then when she sent over the sketches of supply chain, I had said I want it to be a little girl, with purple hair, no more detail. And then it was like we were kind of connected. Like she saw what I was seeing and put it on paper.
That's really cool. And that's interesting too. Like I appreciate that she was honest about, I don't know much about supply chain, so it's probably a great learning journey for her as well. Getting involved with those books. And we have a few comments coming up. I agree. It's truly very difficult to develop the narrative to convey your point properly through only presenting data without context. And you need a cup of coffee pumped straight to the vein. Yes, I do. Most days I do. And then Malachi, the kids are loving the books. They are ready to become engineers. That's super cool. Like that has to be the best compliment as an author when you know you're inspiring kids with what you're writing and how you're presenting that information. So that's super cool. And then Hank, I love Hank. So he has two daughters that watch Mavens every Friday. So I love giving them a shout out every Friday. He calls them his junior board of directors, and he actually created a hashtag. So make sure you're following that hashtag because he sometimes develops content around them too. And then Gina, yes, we need more readers. The best readers are the best writers and thinkers. I think that, and then my mouse died. I'll pull up more comments as my mouse connection gets back on board. But what are some other things, Megan, for you that you do to help more women get attracted to this sector? So, we're facing the skills gap. And the reason why I loved interviewing you and asking you questions about your children's book is because, we have this exposure issue going on where when you're asking some high school students right now, who are involved in these low tech programs, and you ask them flat out, hey, what do you think engineering and manufacturing is? They don't really know how to answer that question. Like some of them have this idea that it's, this nerdy looking guy sitting behind a desk with glasses and, maybe like a pocket protector, or they think about the dirty, dark, dangerous, opportunities that, yeah, they still exist, but there's much more than that involved. So why was it important for you to have a female main character? And, what else are you working with to get the younger generations excited outside of the supply chain children's books?
So to the first question, supply chain, I mean, she, because of her name, she was always going to be a female, but I think that's also super, super important. I would never want a little boy to look at this and be like, oh, I'm not going to read this book because it's a girl. So I've tried to make it, they're not pink, they're not purple, they should be. I hope any little kid can see themselves in.
Yeah, that's right.
And then other than that, I think just to keep with the sort of the communication aspect, I think that's the other really important thing. Like you said, it's the people, like kids, whether it's the next generation, the next generation, there is just this awareness issue. And so I think the more that we can be doing with communication, with storytelling, with just being less boring, if you will. That's really the way to tackle this gap. And I know this is one thing. I do some work with some communication consulting with B2B companies, and this is one thing that we see a lot. No offense to anybody out there, but B2B does not have to equal boring. And yet we seem to, there's this kind of voice that every manufacturing, every like industrial company sort of takes. They when yes, you want to be authoritative. You want to show that you are an expert in your particular field, but every company has a personality, right? That's why every company has a culture. Every company, has something that makes it special, and we should be embracing that and displaying that, and not just kind of hiding behind this like very corporate. We are, we are this company and we produce, we are experts.
Mm-hmm. So what sort of tips then are you providing those types of companies? Because, more and more we're hearing this, we need to switch from, this B2B thought process and start thinking about H to H, which is human to human. So when you're helping these companies with their communications, what's like the top 3 tips that you're giving them to make those kinds of changes so that they're focusing more on their value proposition in their story, their brand narrative?
I think number one is, first of all, sort of maybe this is step 0, is companies have to be self-aware. They have to know their own values. They have to know their own culture. They have to know their own personality, because they can't communicate that until they can articulate it. Mm-hmm. And so the first step is really to going through and sitting down and figuring out, who you are, both kind of between 9 to 5 and then outside of it, because everybody, very few people work 9 to 5 anymore. Very few companies work 9 to 5. And so there's, look at your culture and articulate what makes you, why would someone want to come to work for you? Mm-hmm. That's number one. And then jargon, corporate jargon is the kind of the number one killer. I think if you, like any website copy, any job description, any text that that someone can read, make sure that that's something that you would say in real life. I mean, make it conversational. You don't have to be super informal. That's not appropriate for every company. You don't have to, post memes on your LinkedIn feed, but you can always, I think any company can show more personality than they necessarily feel comfortable with. And the more that you do that, the more you're going to set yourself apart, because if everyone's using the same jargon and the same terminology and even the same kind of like font and logo, everyone starts to look the same. And so that actually makes it easier for you to just take little steps to, kind of to pull out of the crowd and attract more, the type of people who are looking for a different sort of company.
Yeah. I think those are great points. I've worked with clients before too, where they're using all of the same, I feel like they think, oh, if it's a larger word or if it's more complicated to say, then that means we sound more intelligent. And I will get confused and I'll just be like, well, what exactly does this mean? Like, what's one? Turnkey solution is one, where I'm just like, what does that mean though? Because this company, who's your competitor, also offers turnkey solutions. So how is your turnkey different from theirs? And they kind of sit there and they're like, well, and I'm like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. So I think I like doing an exercise with some of my clients where we'll do these word bubbles. So like the words that are similar to what their competitors are using, I'll ask them to come up with like 4 or 5 synonyms so that they're changing their language a little bit. And then, looking back on their brand narrative and tying that in with it too, because not everybody is interested in knowing what the features are and the lights and bells are. They want to know, okay, is this a solution to my problem? So then how can you have that conversation? And I really resonated with what you said, like, ask yourself, is this how you're actually talking to a person in real life. And if it's not, then switch it up a little bit. So I think those were really good points. My mouse is working again. We have Hank, Junior Board of Directors, love reading books. And then Mike Peters from Tennessee, thank you for joining. And then we also have Angela. Fateful, I just loved how she drew Fateful. He's such a cute dog. And then we have Lisa D. Black. She's like, I'm grateful that more and more STEM high schools are popping up. And I agree. I think that's really important. And I think I just saw one of your posts where were you in a library somewhere holding up one of your books? What was that story?
Yeah, so I live in Switzerland right now, but I'm from Minnesota. I grew up in Duluth and then lived in the Twin Cities in St. Paul. And my books are now in the Hennepin County Library System. And so the last time I was home, I went and I had to go, like finger through the shelves to find FIFO and then find supply chain. And that was so exciting. And what was even more exciting is that I looked it up on the not card catalog. I mean, that shows how old I am, but like the computerized card catalog where you look for books. And I was lucky to be able to find one because a lot of them were already checked out, and there's even a wait list. So
that's awesome. So that's with that whole journey, with the children's books, what was one of your proudest moments then, if that wasn't it? Because that's a pretty big moment.
That's a big moment. That's a success moment. Like that's something that looks good on LinkedIn and I can take a picture of. But I think one of my favorite moments, sort of like you just said, and like Malachi said that, his kids love the books. When I hear reviews, or when I hear that kids are reading them, that kids are asking for them. There was one person who said she's got 2 little boys, and they read the books, and then let's see, what was it? They were taking a bath, and it was time to get out of the bath. And she said, "Okay, who's going to get out?" And he said, "Well, I have to get out because first in, first out. I got in first. I got to get out first."
That's awesome. So they're paying attention. I love that. And I like too that there's other people that are, getting on the trend of writing more children's books. So Barbie the Welder, she's coming out with a series. Mike, who I connected you with, he released one, and he actually just showcased that it was released in a different language too. So that's really awesome. Are any of your books available in different languages yet, or not yet?
FIFO Saves the Day is available in German as an ebook, and then I have the translation for Supply Chain Clears the Way in German as well, but I haven't put it up on Amazon yet.
That's super cool. So make sure you go and check out Amazon, buy her books. Supporting our authors is very important. So make sure you do that. But outside of, your children's books that you've written, what are some of the other things that you're working on, and what can we expect to see from you in the future?
What I've been working on most recently is, I've got my kids' books, but I also, when I quit the corporate world, it was to finish my novel. And so I'm working on getting my novel out into the world. And that is about a girl who gets her MBA and gets her first real corporate job and realizes that the corporate world is not all that she thought it was, and that no one is their authentic self at work. So that will be coming out. But then I've also got the 3rd supply chain book, which should be out next year, hopefully like February, March. And before that, this Christmas, I'm working on getting some merch together. So stickers, lunch boxes, notebooks, stuff with lots of, we're working on all new designs, so that kids can take their lunch to school and have something to entertain themselves with. So a nice big design with lots of little dragons, lots of stuff to look at.
I feel like you could make some sort of board game or something for kids, and also do puzzles. So just to put some ideas in your brain there. I think
Great idea.
I
Yeah.
would totally buy a supply chain dragon game. I would totally get that for my kids because they love dragons as well too. I know I messed up before and said it was dinosaurs, but they love dragons too. And I think that would be, and they love board games. So they're into like this Candyland bingo now that they have. And my other son's interested in Monopoly for some reason. He's only 4 years old and he loves Monopoly. But I have to blame my brother for that one because I didn't even realize kids can learn how to play Monopoly at 4. We also have Kathy on. She goes, I appreciate that you're sharing your books with kids. They get exposed to the advancement of these kinds of career domains, and great addition to literacy in the beginning of their lives. And I really hope that I see more schools adopt your books, and not just your books, but also other people who are writing children's books around engineering and manufacturing and putting them in their libraries. I think that's a really great way to start exposing kids to these opportunities. And then hopefully that will, start a chain reaction, and more communities will bring back the VOTEC programs and prioritize them, because I still feel like there's kids graduating from high school. I actually met 4 of them at an event that I went to recently. And one of the girls raised her hand and she's like, I'm really nervous about graduating high school and not knowing where to go. She's like, I want to do something engineering and manufacturing. She's like, but I don't know how to do like interviews or, who to talk to and reach out to. And I just feel like the more we talk about it and get these skills, trained in them, that they'll be more comfortable when they do get out of high school and be able to better select which direction they want to go. So before I let you go here, we're running out on time. If you had one ask for our audience, what would that ask be for them?
I think it would be to get kids started early, to start involving kids. Reading is great, and that's absolutely sort of the fundamental level. But then when you read a book, whether it's one of my books about inventory management, whether it's whatever book it is, take the principles that it's teaching, and then go find that in real life and show your kids how what they just read actually works in the world. And so, for instance, if you want to talk about supply chain, go to the grocery store, and apples and carrots don't grow in the aisle, right? So take them, drive to the back and look at the loading docks, and then go into the store and and look, see if you can find somebody who's putting stuff on the shelves. If you're ordering a package, then track the package through the FedEx system or post office or whatever, and start showing these processes to kids early on, so they start seeing them, looking for them, and then ultimately start thinking, hey, is this process working as well as it can, and can I, when I grow up, make it better? And I think the more that we can get kids actually involved in all of these little processes that make the world work, then they'll grow up, get involved, and make the world work even better.
That's a great idea. Angela did want to know what the age range was for the supply chain books. Well, I'm 39, Angela, and I like them, so that may not be the maximum. But what's the minimum age range, or does it even have an age range?
I don't know that there's a minimum age range. I made sure that they weren't they're not dumbed down. I mean, a 2 or 3 year old, they might have to, I don't. There might be a couple words that they need clarification on, but I would say 3, 4, up to 6 or 7 or 39, whatever whoever wants it, I think.
So I just came up with one last question too, because I admire people that, especially women who decide, hey, I'm going to try something new because I feel like there's a need in the world. And I recently left my corporate job to pursue Mavens and my writing full time. So for any women who might be thinking about changing career pathways or, maybe starting something on their own and being an entrepreneur, do you have any advice for them on, what to prep for or not prep for, or any like inspirational quote that you could provide them on that journey?
I think so. The biggest piece of advice I would say when you're making the decision, what really helped me to do it is to, like, I call it my spreadsheet of liberation, where I put together, like, basically I calculated how much runway I had, because the last thing you want to do is quit your job, be super excited, and then every single day be worrying about how you're going to pay the bills. Like, you need to, I would love to say, if you just go out and follow your passion, but that's not realistic for everyone at every single point in your life. Make it a goal and say, I want to have, a year's worth of the bare minimum. If and then you'll feel fully available to whatever it is that you're trying to do. But I think once you've made the decision, and if you're out there, then just don't. You've got to be resilient. You've got to be resilient no matter who you are in what industry these days, because something's always going to go wrong, and also everything's going to take twice as long or 3 times as long as you think it's going to. So all of these, I don't mean to sound super pessimistic, because this is the best thing that I've ever done. But I think if you go into it with very realistic expectations, you're much less likely to be disappointed. And but it really is, there's so much support out there. There's so much, if you need to tap into a new set of colleagues. I think that was one of the biggest things that took me by surprise, is that if you don't have a job that you're going to every day, you don't have people that you're having coffee with every day or that you're chatting with every day. So build a new community, and then just go with it.
I think that's sound advice, because I think a lot of people assume that it's going to be an easy process. And when I first started out, there were some things that just caught me off guard completely. And I cried a lot of tears, I'm going to be honest, but my tribe is what has helped me, keep going, and given me advice and provided me some resources. So again, I'm going to promote LinkedIn for this. Like, there's a lot of good contacts and resources on LinkedIn. If you're trying to do something on your own, you can follow certain hashtags and reach out to those people. We have Nikki on here. She goes, "Hey ladies, super late to the party. I'll have to catch up later." We will have the recording on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to that channel. And I just want to say thank you, Megan, for coming and taking time, especially all the way out in Switzerland. I really appreciate your time. And for anyone who has questions for you, or they want to learn more about your children's books, or even, get a sneak peek at your novel if you're offering that, where should they go and how should they get a hold of you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, which if you're on LinkedIn right now, that should be easy. That's probably the best place to get a hold of me. And then if you're interested in the books themselves, you can go to www.supply-jane.com.
You also have an additional website, though, with some of your blogs, and you have like motivational quotes on there. Can you provide that as well too? Because I think that's really good content as well.
Yeah, you can. So the link is on both Supply Jane and LinkedIn. It's a little long, which is why I don't normally give it, but it's Megan.Preston-Meyer.com.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much again, Megan. I really appreciate it. And I hope to catch up with you soon, too. I'm really interested in reading your novel when it comes out. So make sure you let us know when that's available. And I'll help push that out as well, too, because anything that I can do to help a fellow writer, I'm all for, because, it's hard to be a writer sometimes, and we need the support for that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week again for another Mavens of Manufacturing episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
We know hiring quality manufacturing talent isn't always easy, and that there can be a lot of moving parts. That's why Factory Fix is introducing a powerful new tool, Talent Text. No more candidate no-shows. Talent Text allows you to connect with candidates up to 5 times faster than you or even the best recruiter can. Job openings happen overnight. Candidates fall by the wayside and emails get buried and forgotten. Through 3-directional chat, Factory Fix Talent Pros help put you in the hand of a highly skilled worker within seconds. Find quality faster